Let me give you a step-by-step guide on how to find a replacement actuator, especially if you have an actuator that has no label on it and you don't know anything about it, like these. These are a couple of random actuators. There's no label on them, so you don't know what it is, you don't know what the stroke it is, you don't know what force it is, so how can you replace it? So let me show you. Here's what you're going to need. You're going to need a 12-volt power supply. You're going to need a tape measure, a pen and paper, access to a computer, which you already have, otherwise you wouldn't be watching this video. And I'll show you how you find out the correct replacement actuator that you're going to need. Okay, so here's what you need to do first when you're trying to replace an actuator and you don't know anything about it. First, look at the wires. So notice this only has 2 wires, and this one has 6 wires. So you know 2 wires are always going to be for the power, positive and negative, 12 or 24 volts. So in this case, this has some sort of a feedback because it has 4 extra wires. So that means it also has a built-in Hall sensor or optical sensor. But let's ignore that for now and come back to it. Let's just now figure out what is the stroke. You need to know what is the stroke of an actuator. There's 2 ways you can find out. First, you can actually run it. So what you want to do, use a tape measure. You want to measure when it's fully retracted. You want to measure what the shaft is that it's sticking out. So this is sticking out 1.5 inches. And then you'll run it to the end of the stroke. So here's my 12-volt supply, wrong way around. And there we go. It's now fully extended because it stopped itself. And now measure it again. And now it's 2.5. So we know this is a 1-inch stroke. So that's a 1-inch stroke. Okay, so now let's look at this actuator. It's already extended. We want to know what the stroke is. So first thing we do, we measure from the end to end here. So that is 12.5 inches. So let's write that down. 12.5 inches, and then we'll retract it and see what the difference is. So you'll notice this is quite slow. So that tells me this is also a higher force unit. So that's going to help us again when we want to find a replacement, what it's going to be. Okay, there it's fully retracted. So now we'll measure it again. And then we'll be able to see what the stroke is. So that is about 1/2 inch. So it was a 12-inch, it retracted 12.5 inch, and then it retracted to 1/2 inch. So that's a 12-inch stroke, basically. And if we measure the body here, you'll see that if it was a 12-inch stroke, that is about right. Because if you cannot run the actuator, what you can do is you can measure the body here, retract around 15% of the body length, will give you an approximate stroke. Now that's not exact, but it is a rough rule of thumb idea. Okay, now let's try and find a replacement actuator for this one that we know is a 12-inch stroke because we measured the stroke when we run it. There's no label on it, we don't know anything about it, but we do are able to use this filtering system on the Firgelli Auto website. So first of all, go to firgelliauto.com, go to products, and then all linear actuators, and then that brings up this page here. And here, this has all the different types of actuators for sale. And as you can see, there's a lot to choose from here, but let's find one that will replace this. So let's change some of the features here. So first of all, we know it's a rod style actuator, so you can click rod here. We know it has feedback because this one has 6 wires, right? 2 for the power and 4 for feedback. So it has a feedback. So feedback, yes. See, and it automatically changes all the different actuators available to you once you do that. And then we can change the stroke as well. We know the stroke was 12 inches. So we change that to 12. Okay, and we don't know the force, so we leave that. So that leaves these options for replacement actuators for this. But look, it kind of looks a lot like this one here, this Super Duty. So let's click on this one and see if we can find something. And they look very, very similar, in fact. So we know it's a 12-inch stroke, so we'll click on 12-inch stroke. Now, remember I said this one was slow, so there's two force options here, so two 20-pound or four 50-pound actuators. So what you could do is you could look at the speed of this actuator to see what it was. So there's a 450 or a 220. So the 451A at no load, because we didn't have any load, was running around 6 millimeters a second. I would say that's about the speed it was running at. And we could have measured the speed to get the exact number. It certainly wasn't that. That was a lot quicker. So I'm pretty sure it was this one. So that tells me that this was a 400. This is a 450-pound force actuator. It's 12-inch stroke, and then you could just add to cart, and that's how you could buy it. As simple as that, and that's how you replace an actuator without knowing anything about it.